Hello beautiful ones, and welcome back to my channel. In the case that you are new here, my name is Leisha and I have been documenting my personal leveling up journey. I've been working on becoming more elegant, more feminine, and building wealth with my husband. I want to share in this week's video some of the ways that we manage money as a married couple. And I want to express that these are really important. You could apply these as a single woman, which I would recommend getting started with right away if you are not already, in preparation for marriage one day. No matter the financial status of the person that you marry, you will want to make sure that in marriage, you're able to manage money well and harmoniously together on the same page. So before I dive into sharing some of the most important things, including one of the top things that my husband wanted me to share with you, I'll share that at the end. I want to give you some context around what we have achieved in the past 5 years of marriage together. So we are going to be celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary this September. We are also welcoming our first child this December, and in the past year, my husband and I have more than doubled our household income. So it's been a really big year for us. We've also owned our home now for a little over 3 years. And when we purchased this home, it was a really big deal for us. It was something that we wanted to do within the first couple of years of being married. And we wanted to not buy a brand new home, we wanted to buy a good investment home. So we're at a point now where we can finally start on our renovations and remodeling of this home it was built in the early 90s and has not been updated at all since. So I wanted to go ahead and let you know that's where we're coming from. We both work full time, which I think is important to understand as how we approach managing finances together. I think that it can depend a little bit on how much, who's working, who's bringing in the income, and how does that level out when you're in a marriage relationship. Something that I think is very important that we did, and I'm very grateful that the minister who married us would actually not perform the ceremony unless we went and did marriage counseling. And money was one of the top topics which we discussed. I think that it's sad, that a lot of marriages end, unfortunately, due to a disagreement or a very big disagreement over mismanagement of finances. And so, first of all, we learned that we have to be very trusting and open about this area in our marriage. You have to make sure that everything you spend, if your spouse asks you a question about it, and vice versa, you need to be open and honest with it, because whatever is hidden in the dark is really just going to fester and it becomes like a disease in a relationship. So you really need to work on making sure that you can trust this person, especially if you are not married yet. Make sure that you have these conversations and these understandings about boundaries in the relationship when it comes to finances, so that you will be able to harmoniously work together. Now, the other thing that you'll want to understand is you really will want to ask the person that you're marrying or you're in a relationship with, what was their upbringing like? Did they come from wealth? Were they of more of a lower economic status? Did both of their parents work? Did their mother stay home? Are they from a single parent household? So things like that can really have a big impact on not only just your perspective on money and how you plan to both spend and build wealth, but also your spouse's. And when you have an understanding of their background with money, then you can better use that context to navigate further conversations. The first thing that you need to have in place, of course, is, I think, a spending plan. So this might be called a budget in your household, but spending plan is what we like to call this now. We think that that's a term that's a lot more productive and positive when it comes to money. Make sure you put together that spending plan in a positive light. It's not a plan to restrict you. Your budget is actually meant to help you to grow and set up the foundation that you will need in order to succeed and flourish in your finances. The next thing that we really focused on, and that I think is so important and sad that the majority of people here in the US do not have this, but it is your rainy day fund, your emergency fund, your fun spending money, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to use emergency fund right now because that is the most common topic that I hear this fund referred to. You want to make sure that you and your spouse are both contributing and managing that fund together. We started out with $1,000. Now, so when we were first married, I worked part-time and my husband was working his first full-time tech job as a husband where he was supporting me. So prior, we both had jobs where we were always working, but we only had to worry about ourselves. So now having this fund to set aside was very, very important for both of us to take advantage of. I know that when I was coming up in my 20s and working jobs, if I had not had this fund set aside at one point when I actually did lose my job due to a budget cut at the nonprofit where I was working, I just think that I would have had so much higher stress and suffering based on not having the ability to move out of my apartment and move into a better living situation that I could afford and that sort of thing as quickly as I did. So I was very thankful for that experience, and that was something that I carried into our marriage, and both my husband and I had to work on that. So you'll want to increase your fund over time, of course. It's even better, really, you should work towards having a full year's worth of living expenses, just your basics, your mortgage or rent, and then your food and other bills that are fixed every month. That is just the bare minimum. But that has been a lifesaver. And I think that ultimately, if you want to stay out of debt and build wealth, you need to have this fund set aside as something that you can practically use whenever something just comes up. And maybe it is something comes up, like an opportunity to go on a trip. And so if your fund is full, you can take that opportunity. I think that it's important, though, just overall to be on the same page about contributing to this and managing it wisely. Another item that I think contributed to some of our success as a married couple managing money together is that we both agreed to some spending boundaries that we had. We agreed very early, and this was actually something that we did learn in marriage counseling, that we would have an agreement that above a certain dollar amount that one or the other wanted to spend, we would need to run it by the other person and make sure that they would agree to it. When we wanted to join the country club, I said, hey, right now our income is not really, I don't feel comfortable with that, supporting that every month. But I said, if you can pay the initiation fees with a side hustle up front, that will give us more time to really build more of a buffer and perhaps increase our income. So that's what he did. So we worked it out like that. And I think in situations, having that boundary there, it's not that you're trying to say and make a hard stop rule all the time that, your spouse can't do XYZ or you can't do XYZ with the money. It's just more about having that respect to work together towards different goals or different wants that you might have that aren't necessarily, things that are going to impact your basic needs, but it is important to make sure that you agree to. Now that brings me to another topic, which is the topic of joint bank accounts. So I do believe that marriage especially is something that you should go into with the understanding and the commitment level of what it's ours now, it's our life. This was actually very difficult for me to adjust to. I'm not going to lie. I had a really hard time, especially once I started to work so hard on my career. It was difficult for me to accept that everything is ours. It's something that I've worked on, and I'm just being very honest about that. The joint bank account is important. It is a place where you both are working together and conscientious of how much working money you have at any given time to be spending in your day-to-day life throughout the month. So that being said, I do think that it's okay to have some of your money put aside just in the case that you need it. And we have agreed in our household that it's okay to do this with side hustle income to a certain extent. As far as our full-time income will go more towards the joint expenses together. And then our side income will often help to pay for the extras that we have, or we also do invest a lot of that. So that's something that is very important to understand. And every couple, I think, is different on this. I am going to do a Q&A, so to speak, or more of an Instagram video over on my private Instagram. So if you would like to follow me there, just send me a request and then try to send me a DM so that I know you're a real person and that you're not a scammer or anything like that. We have been talking about this, especially with the baby coming and with these remodeling projects and everything. We have been discussing and making some adjustments to how we contribute to both finances and running the household. And I have to say that if you are a feminine woman and you really are, you have those values, that this is actually what I prefer. I prefer to support my husband, and yet I also contribute. I have my own projects going, but the household is sort of my domain. You know, aside from larger construction projects and the exterior and things like that, the interior household, it's my nest, and I feather my nest and I keep it clean, and I make sure that we have food and cleaning supplies and all of that stuff. That's sort of my role. I put more work into that aspect to sort of account for the offset in our income. So just a brief little bit there on that topic, but I think every marriage is different, and again, this may even change or be different depending on how your spouse was raised and what they would like to do. Now, before we wrap it up, I do want to come back to the mindset piece. This is what my husband said is his biggest piece of advice for managing money as a married couple. Now, he said that it's very important to have a positive and very productive, abundant money mindset. However, it is as important to stay disciplined within the current income that you have. Do not spend more than what you are making. I think that it's important to determine as a married couple, what is your primary mission statement or vision statement for your household when it comes to finances. So ours is that we do live in a state of abundance, but we are disciplined and we are working on being disciplined enough to spend within our means. Uphold that vision statement with integrity. That is going to be your roadmap that gets you to where you can really start to flourish in wealth. I have some other videos that I would love for you to take a look at, especially if you haven't seen these yet. These are just some of my other thoughts and experiences around building wealth and where we have been, where we are going. I hope that I will see you there. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.